Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. Beyond measure.
Senator the Honorable John Bostwick.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, Madam President and fellow senators, it is very good to be here amongst you, and I continue to give God thanks for the honor to represent the Bahamian people and the free national movement on this high ground. Yesterday, I didn't get the opportunity, and I'll say very quickly, because there's a short time to cover a lot. I didn't get the opportunity to formally welcome the new opposition Senate leader, the Honorable Carl Bethel. I have known Mr. Bethel for most of my natural life, believe it or not. He was always a step ahead of me. He was the old boy at St. Andrews. And I tease him. I remember my most vivid memory of him is Toad Hall. I wouldn't say what character he played, but very vivid. And, yeah, like another honorable senator, he was also leader of the Torchbearers, but I wouldn't poke that senator anymore. But yes, but it is good to have him here. And I say openly that his presence will allow myself and others of us to continue on the road that we've been on while he can handle a lot of the politics. I note that this collection of bills that we are looking at today center, as we've all said, around amendments to our criminal laws and criminal procedure. 3 out of the 4 are pointedly motivated by our desire to comply correctly and maybe beyond time with UN regulations. And I just note out of curiosity that again, we are moving to comply with external pressures to do things that we really should address ourselves to some time ago. It would seem that even our tax structures are being motivated by external forces in WTO and IMF, and now our criminal code is being motivated by the need to comply. That said, all of the UN-motivated amendments as to the prevention of bribery, anti-terrorism, and most especially, for me, the justice protection are overdue. The object and reasons of the Justice Protection Amendment Bill state that the bill's primary purpose is to provide robust, timely, and sensitive response and protection of key officials in the criminal justice system and the innocent individuals who must appear before them, for example, witnesses and jurors. Again, I say very, very much overdue and beyond warranted. In my opinion, it's somewhat of a travesty that some, especially justices and jurors and witnesses and police personnel, but particularly justices, have operated for so long under the conditions that they have, given the nature of crime in the Bahamas today. Madam AG at her last time here would have had carriage of the trial of a person who was listed as the 3rd most wanted man on the planet Earth at the time. By all accounts, a very dangerous criminal. These are serious people we are now dealing with in our courts. They're not the criminal of past. We now try multiple murders, people who are on trial for multiple murders. And as has been so very forcibly said here, there have been so many instances of persons connected to trials who have met untimely ends and violent ends. It is well beyond time, and I doubly applaud the move to judicial protection. Very, very necessary. As a practicing member of the Bar Association, the Bahamas Bar Association, as indicated to my learned friends and Senate colleagues, many of whom are my learned friends, I, along with others, do have some concern with regard to what many of us see as a trend toward the erosion of the fundamental rights, of many fundamental rights that each of us enjoy in our free and democratic society. My colleague, Senator Thompson, has very, very eloquently and expertly outlined some of those concerns with regard to amendments to the Evidence Act, pointing out that those rights are enshrined in our Constitution, most particularly Article 22, where we are to be considered innocent until proven guilty when brought before a court of law in the Bahamas. Again, the presumption is the presumption of innocence. Hence, the prosecution must prove our guilt. These latest amendments propose to again erode this presumption of innocence by yet again shifting the burden of proof from the prosecution to the defendant with regard to his or her proving that they were not present at the scene of a crime once video evidence or tracking bracelet records indicate that they were so present. False identification is common in the criminal courts. It is something that justices have to give direction to, the danger of. Many people look similar in our small, interrelated community. Some people look almost identical. Oftentimes you hear, it wasn't me. I wasn't there. No, I wasn't at the fish fry. No, I wasn't in Miami. It wasn't me. Tracking bracelets, since they've been introduced, have turned up without their owners. They've turned up on dead men. These systems are not fail-safe. These systems are subject to human error. Innocent until proven guilty. And again, I think Senator Thompson has done a good job of this, so I can leave some of it out. But that, combined with recent and proposed amendments, which took and take away the accused's right to give an unsworn statement, as well as presumptions and evidence with regard to possessions on dangerous drugs and firearms, are potentially very reckless and may further exemplify a system going in the wrong direction and itself contributing to the creation of a criminal class. It is my humble suggestion that we must be as afraid of becoming a police state as we are of crime itself. We cannot allow fear to strip us of our freedoms as we willingly resign our civil liberties, especially not in a state where successive leaders have asked for help as they attempt to solve the present crime deluge. The Commissioner of Police is depressed. The police are tired, overworked, and outgunned. Already in our free country, we must ask the Commissioner of Police for permission to march on our roads, for permission to gather peacefully and to protest in our streets, our parks and squares. Just recently, we celebrated majority rule and established a holiday to mark it each year. We seem to have forgotten that this historic milestone was achieved through civil disobedience and peaceful resistance. We must be very careful not to be too fearful. As we debate bills prompted by our responsibilities to comply with external obligations, the UN in this instance, one of which addresses terrorism, we must have the courage to speak out aggressively against such acts of terrorism here at home. That said, no matter our personal opinion of certain persons and personalities, it must be said that the recent throwing of a live grenade into the premises of one of our 3 major newspapers was exactly that, an act of terrorism which must be condemned from the national high ground. It must be seen as an attempt to further erode our constitutionally guaranteed rights, an attempt to muzzle our freedom of speech, to gag the 4th estate of our civilized democratic society, the free press. We must be seen to abhor such subversive, suppressive, oppressive, coercive actions. Our laws provide remedies for those who feel that they have been slandered, libeled, or defamed. They also provide remedies for intimidation, threats, and terrorism. And the law should be seen to act, and as our AG likes to say, act swiftly and decisively. The truth is that we, each and every one of us in this place and all of those listening, we are all being terrorized by bold, blatant criminals in our Bahamas today. There are many of us who are not afraid to stand. Every day, I give honor to, I don't pass a policeman without shaking his hand. It's impossible. And I give honor to every one of them who do their 9 to 5 as an armed police officer, doing war against 24/7 armed bandits and criminals. Then at 5 o'clock, they have to go turn in their weapon, count every bullet, and go home to join the rest of us like sitting ducks. It's amazing that they have the courage it must take. The courage. Just like the Royal Bahamas Police Force, we the people are also outgunned. Minister Bell likes to come here to this high ground with pictures of arms, putting horror in all of us. The COP, the Commissioner of Police, displays tables and tables and tables full of high-powered weapons. One such weapon was recently used to murder a young lady after a high-speed chase that ended up behind a police station. Notwithstanding the fact that they were behind a police station, they finished the job they came to do. So really, I do suggest that we are presently sitting ducks, hiding behind gated communities, high walls, killer dogs, barred windows, monitored security systems, and still we are afraid. Constantly afraid. And I suggest becoming somewhat paralyzed with fear to the point that we are prepared to resign our freedoms and our rights. That description of where we are sitting as sitting ducks really applies to those of us who can afford monitored security systems and gated communities. The rest of us, the middle class and the working class, imagine how they feel without all of that security protection. They probably feel more like lambs to the slaughter. They would definitely feel like that should the proposed amendments, or some of the proposed amendments to the Firearms Act, which is being debated in that other place as we speak, actually move forward. Proposals that would outlaw many, many types of weapons that are presently licensed to legal, law-abiding, business-owning citizens of the Bahamas. Any weapon producing more than 900 pounds of pressure at the muzzle, which includes some shotguns that are presently licensed. In fact, includes all double-aught, all S&G, all single-bore ammunition for shotguns will be outlawed in the Bahamas. All 223s, all 308s used by many hunters. Very expensive weapons. I humbly suggest that if this law was to pass, then the government of the Bahamas would find itself liable for maybe $3 to $4 million in guns and ammunition that people are legally in possession of due to having been vetted by the Commissioner of Police, Interpol, and other agencies before they were granted licenses to possess the same by the government of the Bahamas, having done nothing wrong, many of whom are victims of crime, of aggressive crime, in a state where the police authorities are depressed and stating that they're overwhelmed, unable to protect you. From sitting duck to lamb to the slaughter. Recently, a week ago, Tuesday, I attended a gathering in a parking lot off Shirley Street. And I couldn't believe it when I walked behind the building and I saw who was there. A gathering of concerned Bahamian businessmen, maybe 200-300 strong. Leading black businessmen, leading white businessmen, Bay Street businessmen, Chinese Bahamian businessmen, businessmen, 200 to 300 strong, come together to oppose the present suggestions. Come together to form a Bahamian version of the NRA. Come together to say that they are amongst the real men of the Bahamas who hunt and who are desirous of providing protection to their loved ones in a place where the police authorities cannot do so. but they are being told that they are not capable of protecting their loved ones, that they're not worthy of protecting their loved ones, that they're not responsible enough to protect their loved ones. We in the Bahamas, we can't do anything for ourselves, it seems. That a government who says they believe in Bahamians, believe Bahamians don't have any right. We can't gamble. We can't do anything. We just can't do anything for ourselves. We can't manage our money. There's nothing we can do for ourselves. The government has to take care of that and protect us from ourselves. There's all this talk about high-powered weapons and crime. I have been doing research. I cannot find one instance of a licensed high-powered weapon being involved in any criminal offense in the history of the Bahamas. Not one. Not one. All this talk about people going to break in your house. The only people who know that you've been licensed to have a high-powered weapon is the police. Are they going to tell these people that you have this high-powered weapon in your house? In a locked safe? As you are obliged to have it? I cannot find any incident of reports of housebreaking and on that list, stolen high-powered weapon. So I don't know where that talk is coming from. It's nonsense. All this talk about constitutional referendums, etc., etc., we need to have a constitutional referendum on the right to bear arms to protect ourselves. We've gotten to that point. It is the reality that we face in the Bahamas today, where ministers of the government feel the need to carry arms, although they have full police protection, yet they don't feel safe. As I stated, the three bills presented in accordance with the UN are good and necessary, especially that which addresses the justice protection. However, as stated, their amendments to the Evidence Act may further erode the rights of any of us who may ever be innocently, wrongly, maliciously accused of a crime. And that does happen in the Bahamas. In short, the amendments as they are, in my humble opinion, will have little effect on the present crime epidemic we are suffering as a nation. This administration promised solutions to crime. They made it political, and by the nature of comments in this debate, they continue to do so. And it should have never been made so. This week, no matter what creative counting is employed, we have surpassed 100 murders. A milestone which was made political by the side opposite. Although the entire crime issue was made political by the present government. That said, he along with the Minister of National Security are now openly asking for help to have are now openly asking for help and have a high-powered team touring the country seeking the assistance of whomever may have a suggestion. One may draw the very strong inference that this activity is an outright and unashamed admission that they got it wrong. That they did not have the answers they said they had. And that the policies with the pretty names referred to in the paper recently, which they outlined, including Urban Renewal 2.0, have failed to produce a result which they had so ambitiously forecasted. Just like the mortgage relief plan, the promise of low electricity and 10,000 jobs, we have not seen it. Yes, it is true, they are the government, and it is now their job to do what they are employed to do. But that said, they have asked for help. And I verily believe that they honestly and sincerely mean it. So, we are here to help. As a true, free nationalist. The topic of crime, its causes and its solutions are broad. Crime, national security, judicial system, education, youth development, economic diversification, social reform, and immigration are all a part of the discussion. Reviewing of sentencing policies, up in some cases, harsher, and to relax in some cases. Revamping of police authorities, the expanded use of K9 units, air surveillance, employment of drones, public defenders. It's beautiful to hear the AG talk about public defenders. And trained non-police attorneys, review of files prior to charges being pressed. Education, education, education. Adult literacy programs. The reintroduction of a truancy department. Real truancy department. National service. Economic diversification towards an opportunity-based society. Social enrichment. We can start. We can start. And we can move forward together. We need a Firearms Act that will place extreme penalties, 25 years to life, for the illegal import and or sale of a firearm, as Senator Bazard started to go to. We don't make guns in the Bahamas. We don't make guns in the Bahamas. For every person I catch with an illegal firearm, I would offer him a deal if he tell me where he got it from. I want the one who bought in that gun, that one who's selling that gun. One of the greatest travesties I felt recently was the Bahamas' failure to stand on the world stage and lobby aggressively, even in the U.S. marketplace, when the Obama tried to get the legislation in the U.S. with regard to registering guns changed. That was important to the Bahamas. It was very important to the Bahamas. Everywhere else doing everything else and involved in everything else. We need bills seeking to review sentencing policies, imposing non-custodial sentences for non-violent offenses, including the possessions of certain quantities of presently dangerous drugs. We need to focus on the rehab of such offenders, community service sentences for such offenders. But we don't need to make them another member of the criminal class. You know how many cases we could throw out if we took that type of approach? How many people would plead guilty? Let me go and get cured. Let me go pick up some garbage for $500. We could clear out so many people who are presently languishing in Fox Hill for petty offenses. It is my humble opinion that ankle bracelets were meant for such people. Ankle bracelets ain't supposed to be on murderers and armed robbers. They're supposed to be on petty offenders. We could start debating creative things like an act to maybe privatize the Fox Hill prison system. We could bring forward some serious anti-human trafficking laws. Human trafficking feeds into so many illicit activities. It feeds into the sex trade. Recently, we had a lady from another jurisdiction nearby charged with human trafficking towards sex trade. Human trafficking leads to illegal and indentured workers. It has potential of terrorism, weapons, drugs flow along the same network. For every person that we catch on an illegal boat, like those we are presently processing, there should be one thing we're trying to find out from them. Who is the captain? Who is the person who put you on the boat in Port-au-Prince? Who did you pay that money to? Who do you now owe? Who is holding you indentured? These people, we need to lock up for 50 years. Throw away the key. It was in the spirit, and in that spirit of proffering suggestions, and solutions that in months preceding, I, who has had the honor of being appointed by the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Hubert Minnis, have been appointed as the Shadow Minister of Tourism. And as I observed tourism, it occurred to me that the greatest threat to tourism, the greatest threat to our existence presently, is crime. There's no greater threat to our number one industry. And I took the view, after meeting extensively with the Commissioner of Police, as well as some other interests, including foreign interests, that if we do not address and arrest the occurrence of crime at every level within our capital's precincts, we will have systematically destroyed the very bread and butter of our nation, its engine, its heart, and we will all suffer profound consequences, the foreshadowing of which already looms as the nature of travel industry advisory issued by the U.S. State Departments and cruise operators with regard to the safety of U.S. citizens traveling to and or living in the Bahamas continues to paint an increasingly dismal portrayal, and they continue to come. That is, the warnings. Recently we had a group of Latter-day Saints want to visit their home church here in the Bahamas while on a cruise and end up getting stabbed outside the church. That's what they took back to their Congress, to Utah. We went to visit our church in the Bahamas and we were robbed and stabbed. While this administration actually has promoted a religious tourism consultant, he got something to explain now. We are dangerously and very dependent on the revenue brought by cruise passengers. To accept this, and to accept the fact that we cannot keep that segment of society safe, would be to admit a dismal failure as a free self-ruled society. We can and must act decisively, and it is to this end that I offered what I term the TNT to defuse the situation. When you're putting out an oil fire, you got to use dynamite. That's the only way you could do it, to suck the oxygen out of the fire. And while I do sincerely feel that the real fix to crime is the diversification of our economy, the creation of opportunity. That's the long-term thing, in education. We still have to begin by shoring up our primary industries. That must be our priority. We must protect that which we have from the present crime cancer and ensure that it is totally cured and cut out. The suggestions that I made at that time were embraced by the Minister of Tourism. In fact, he took them into the floor of that place below. Very much so embraced. And at that time, as I said, they were pointed to tourism, but as I review them, they can be extended to our entire capital island. You know, the majority of tourists that come to this Bahamas come to this 21/7. And as, again, my learned friend Senator Thompson pointed out, you got to look at Nassau. We talk about nationwide. Yes, it's very good on a national level that things are, but the concentration of the populace, the concentration of the economy, the concentration of the tourists is here on this 21/7. And you know, and here's a life resident of Grand Bahama saying, as Nassau goes, so does the Bahamas. So we've got to focus on our capital. I suggested that we need to define zones and police them urgently. Very, very urgently. And I further suggested, as has been discussed here in some detail, the urgent saturation of the CCTV systems throughout New Providence, throughout our capital island. It is good and well to amend the Evidence Act in a way that I agree with Senator Thompson is potentially dangerous so as to give effect to these images collected. But we must firstly be in a position to collect the images. We always talk about the UK model. The UK model with regards to CCTV systems is the world leading model. And as I again adopt from Senator Thompson, if we adopt their practice, we must also look deeply at their regulation and policy. But that it can be achieved even as our government faces fiscal restraints, financial restraints, I would suggest that it's so important that we need to look at the budgets of the Ministry of Tourism, the Ministry of National Security, and the Ministry of Works and make it happen. We further need to incentivize the private sector and give them tax incentives, where there's import stamp and even property taxes, where they have installed camera systems that they give the police access to. It would encourage them to be a part of this. It would encourage the creation of what has now become a catchphrase, public-private partnerships towards even the fight in crime. Again, it is beyond clear that crime is a national problem affecting each and every one of us, no matter our politics, race, age, sex, or creed. We must be a united nation, literally declaring war on crime and all things criminal, especially on this close-knit 21/7 society. I think sometimes people don't put enough emphasis on semantics. When governments declare war on anything, it gives them much leeway. And we should now be at war with criminals. I know Senator Bell agrees with that. I think he's been at war for a minute. I further suggested that there must be an immediate saturation of visible police patrol units. And I do believe that on this small island, all this talk, always talking about new cars, we can buy 40 more cars, 80,000 a pop, new cars. At 42 years young, I ride this island. I get on my bicycle with my 15-year-old and we ride the island for fun, for recreation, for exercise. God help it if it was my duty. Bikes don't cost as much as cars. Bikes are more intimate, more personal. They can get through track roads. When you're riding past on a bicycle, you could hear what the man is saying. You could smell what that cigarette is in his hand. When you're cruising through with the air conditioner on in the car, and the window up, there's only so much interaction that you're going to experience. There's only so much you're going to be aware of. Like they say, slow down, take the time to notice what is going on. There needs to be more partner foot patrols. Why is it? Sometimes I wonder, with the greatest respect to the police who I love and support, if they are a little bit afraid of certain areas. Why is it that they got to go in mass? If the police going to do a walkabout in Nassau Village or in Baintown or in the back of Cowpen Road, they send 100 people to walk through that. Can we no longer have 2 or 3 policemen on the beat who walk through that particular road every day? They become familiar with the road, with the track road, with the personalities, with the people sitting on the step. People may whisper a little something in their ear as they become familiar. Again, I would at another time address urban renewal, because it's actually an abused term here. Urban renewal in its true sense can work. It can work. But that's for another time. One of the things I see being employed is the return to police directed traffic at major intersections, particularly downtown and during the rush hour mornings on certain corridors. I think that's very effective. Visibility, again, and it allows the police to sweat the small things, to see and note the small things. And to kill the bold criminal who feels that it's all right to ride around in his car doing blatantly illegal things. there are many suggestions that were advanced, including the dedicated introduction of special canine. You know, every time I go out to the tattoo, I marvel at the things that these dogs can do, but I don't ever see them after that. I don't see them. It's like, wow. No, I want to see them on Bay Street. I want to see them everywhere. I want to see them at the roadblock. How much could a policeman see in my car? What that dog could find, you can't imagine. I want to see them. I want to see them in use. Canines have been used to become visible and effective deterrents to all levels of crime, including detection of dangerous drugs, arms, human trafficking. We need to make much more use of some of the things that we actually have. Before you, more car. Another $80,000 car to be wrapped around a $2,000 lamp pole. And again, we must continue to foster the relationship that is even discussed here, a true national partnership, a true public-private partnership, a true bipartisan partnership towards addressing crime. One of the things that I do feel that there needs to be greater focus on is a conscious effort to remove the presence of negative elements. I almost believe that it was Senator Bell, Minister Bell, who coined the phrase known criminals. We suffer known criminals. Well, we need to deal with known criminals and remove them from our society. And we need to add that to all negative elements. Vagrants, peddlers, hustlers. We need to get them all from the visible element of our society. Sometimes it is very clear to me that what we show the world is the worst of us. That too has to stop. We must come to see the gates of our capital city as the entryway into one of the world's busiest tourist destinations. We see 4 million people downtown now, so every year. It is most like a Disney World or a Times Square in New York, Trafalgar Square in London. Once we accept what we have in the port of Nassau, what a national treasure our capital city is itself, the literal heart of our increasingly fragile tourism and financial services industries and economy based on them, we will realize that we have to protect it and guard it jealously. We must sweat the small things, all things and everything which has the outward appearance of negativity. One of the things that I feel, and in ending, one of the things that I feel is fundamental to what we do next is a national determination. And that is towards determining that the Bahamas and the Port of Nassau is not a sex nor narco-tourism destination. We have to address the overall collective national desire and determination that while proud of our free ancestry and deeply aware of our pirate history, we are no longer a nation of pirates. We're no longer a country of robbers, looters, sluggards, bootleggers, drug runners, where everything and anything is for sale. Our national motto prior to independence was expel the pirates, restore commerce. It is now forward, up, and onward together. I humbly suggest that we fuse the two. Forward, upward, onward together toward expelling the pirate mentality and establishing commercial equality. I suggest that we must stand together, stand united as a people against crime. Divided as we are, we stand to be conquered, cowering in fear as we are, as a new breed of pirate terrorizes, rapes, and plunders our precious Bahamas. So as we do support, as I say, the necessary amendments, and we do, and I echo my learned friend, my colleague, with our concerns towards the erosion of the presumption of innocence. We do have marked concerns of where we are today in the Bahamas with regard to crime. We pray God that crime is never again politicized in this country. That there will never again be billboards, not posters, billboards placed on roundabouts, placed on the route from the airport. No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. It is our sincere hope that by 2007, we won't have an issue with crime in the Bahamas. So, as I say that, I end by saying simply, may God bless and keep you all, and may God bless and keep the Bahamas at this time in the palms of his hands. Thank you, Madam President.